Of the show. If you're here, you're going to get one, so you don't need to rush anybody on the way out. We'll go through the middle doors on exit. Piece of cake, all right? That's about it. So we're going to go have some different perspective on Star Wars collecting now, as we this could be very interesting and informative, I think. We'll see where we go from here. All right. Partners in collecting. So Steve Sansweet has often called my wife a Star Wars saint. I have to agree with him on that. She puts up with an awful lot. Anyway, so we're going to look at the sanctification and beatification of all of the people up here on the panels today. And we have Ann Jenkins, Bob Canning, Kim McElwain, and Artie Carvalho. No, Marjorie, sorry. Oh, that's bad. I knew this was going to happen. And Pam Green. All right, sorry, Marjorie.
That's okay.
Apologies. So let's hear it for the partners in collecting.
Thank you all for coming today. We thought you might be interested in a slightly different look on Star Wars collecting. And so a lot of the collectors were very excited surprisingly excited to have their spouses share. So we kind of set this up as a scrapbook, a little bit about our journey, and just the behind the scenes and things that we have experienced as we have been married to as Star Wars collectors. So we wanted to just start with kind of some of the more obvious questions that I hear a lot. I imagine the other panelists hear these questions a lot. And so the first question is, are we Star Wars fans? And so I'll just start with myself. I am a Star Wars fan. I am probably more of a moderate Star Wars fan than like an intense Star Wars fan. I don't read all the novels. I don't care about the comics. But I love to go. I love to see all the costumes. I love to hear about Star Wars. I can get into some of the geek-sidedness of, like who shot first. I'm into that. So it's natural for me, or at least I enjoy Duncan's collection, and that I enjoy Star Wars too.
I'm not a Star Wars fan per se, but I fell into it because I fell in with that crowd, and that was the ringleader was Steve Sansweet. But I do enjoy the movies, and I remember the first time we saw Star Wars. He was a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and he didn't know what it was. And when he came out of the movie, he was moved beyond imagination. And I said, "Oh, it's a nice movie, But that's, but I appreciate it, and I love the fans that we meet, and that to me is more important than the Star Wars movie or the trilogy than anything else.
My name is Kim McQueen, and I'm married to Jonathan McQueen. When we met in high school, we were high school sweethearts. I had never seen the Star Wars movie, so that was one strike against me. I don't even remember when he made me watch it, but I know he did. And that was one stipulation to move along in the relationship, was I had to see the movies. Am I a Star Wars fan? I am, because it consumes most of our lives. I support him, which is why I'm here, and I also got a trip to Disney out of it. So I do love it, like you said, the fans and just the people he's met online and over the internet and collecting stuff, so that's been really interesting. And so yeah, I am a fan by default.
I'm Marjorie, and I apologize, I've lost my voice, but I'm married to Artie Carvalho, and I am a Star Wars fan. I was a fan before I met him. He actually kept it secret, his collecting, till he knew I was going to be game for it. But I have my own little collections that I started that he didn't know about when he met me either. We love Star Wars together. It's probably a sick habit that we have, that we travel all over to do things like this.
As Duncan mentioned, I'm Pam Green. I'm married to Gus Lopez, who some of you might know. Also wanted to mention before I start, we were up blowing up the Endor shuttle last night, so I'm either going to be completely incomprehensible today or refreshingly honest. Or maybe both. What was the question again? Oh. Star Wars at Coast Cinema in Westwood. This was my first experience, maybe as a young person, with obsession, because we would just watch one matinee after the other, not quite be able to explain to our parents why we kept watching this silly science fiction movie over and over.
I was just really lucky that I got to see Star Wars. I was 10, and everyone at school had seen it, and I wanted to see it so badly, but it was a PG movie. And my parents were not quite sure that a 10-year-old girl should be going to a PG movie. So my dad and my uncle went and screened the movie first. And I sat on with bated breath waiting to find out the verdict. And they came back and said, yes, it's acceptable. You can go see Star Wars. So one of my favorite memories, Star Wars memory, is my dad reading me the credits, or the scroll at the beginning as it went past. So I did get to see it, and I was hooked. So some of you kind of, I already kind of commented on this, but we're curious whether your spouse was collecting before you met them, or if that started after you were together.
Well, Steve and I have been together 34 years. Talk about a saint.
Yes, you are a saint, Bob.
And obviously, the movie came out 33 years ago. He was collecting robots at the time, just ordinary type space robots. And then when the movie came out, he continued collecting the robots, but then Star Wars really, really took over. So you know the story.
My husband did collect before we met. I think he kept it a secret for quite a few months until I found out. But now it's funny to hear stories of when he was a little boy and he went to see it, and his mother at some point said, "You need to stop this because you're becoming obsessed." And had she known 33 years later, whatever, he would be traveling and talking. So yeah, he did collect.
Artie did collect before he met me. He actually kept it in his basement, and ironically enough, in a giant walk-in closet. And there was a lot of jokes about him coming out of the closet with the collection with me, and his mother insisted that he hide the Star Wars collection from this girl that he brought home because it might have been problematic had I not liked Star Wars. Luckily for him, I grew up in a Star Wars household, loved Star Wars. But he also had not just Star Wars, he had Marvel. Do you have Joe? No Joe. Just various things like that, various sci-fi movie franchises. And in 2000, we did have a very serious talk about collecting one thing and doing it well. And he does have an evil mistress named Marvel.
Okay, Gus likes to say he never really stopped collecting, which was kind of true, but he was kind of in remission at the time he met me. I think he discovered girls or something, but anyway, he started talking to these shady people on something called the internets about collecting Star Wars figures, but he wasn't quite sure what he had from when he was a kid. So this was literally a few months after we met, when we were dating. He flies home to where his parents are in New Jersey, and I guess explores their labyrinthine basement. It looks kind of like Jabba's mansion somewhere. Anyway, he comes back. I remember this was pre 9/11. I met him as he got off the plane. He's clutching this precious shoebox full of action figures. And he tells me, "I decided I'm going to complete my collection of Star Wars action figures." That's nice, dear. I just had no idea at the time this was going to involve filling up a 3,500 some square foot house with stuff, including the original prop model of the Death Star. But
Duncan was collecting when we met. We studied overseas one of our junior year in college, and we hadn't met each other up until that point. So I was getting to know him, and we were traveling as in groups a lot to various sites in England. And it was, I noticed that every little city we went to, we had to stop at the toy store and see what kind of Star Wars items they might still have, and ask everyone we ran into if they had Star Wars. So I kind of got to see the collecting process before we started dating, so I kind of knew what I was in for. So we're going to move on to our next topic, which is the baggage we carry, literally. one commonality.
It's actually my stuff, it's not Gus's. You can't blame him for all of that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's important to know.
And I'm just trapped in the car after a Comic-Con shopping trip at the Comic-Con.
So one of the things that we have all found as a supportive spouse is that you help carry, bundle, package, pack a lot of interesting things. So we're just going to share a few stories about some of the interesting experiences that we've had. So I think the first one we'll talk about, Pam, if you want to talk about your Pepsi machine.
The epic story of the Star Wars Pepsi machine. Okay, this is going to take a couple of minutes, but so this is going to be the first important tip for partners. Star Wars Pepsi machine takes 3 guys. Remember that. So Gus wants the Star Wars Pepsi machine. We have this good friend Carol who might even be here. Who's got a Honda Element, and I guess if you're a collector, one tip here is a Star Wars Pepsi machine fits exactly inside a Honda Element. But this is for partners, so. Well, the guy's going to pick it up, and there's 2 guys, right? There's Gus and Earl, and the guy with the Pepsi machine. And they pop it right into the Honda Element, and they're off, and they're like, cool, we can do this. Well, they come home. 2 guys, right? Gus and Earl, and me, who's not a guy. Suddenly, the Star Wars Pepsi machine was approximately 970 billion pounds. It does not move, and all we have to do is get it from the curb to our basement. Well, this thing, it won't even get up to 2 inches up the curb. And we're like there for what seems like 2 days trying to get it just from the street to our basement door. I'm not even going to go into all of it. Finally, the thing is like on its belly, kind of stuck halfway in my basement door, halfway out of the basement store. It's like not moving in, not moving up, not moving up, not moving down. Then it starts to snow. Well, eventually, because I guess God looks down on stupid collectors, we get it into the basement, but it's kind of like there on its belly, on its side, like some kind of beach leviathan, and we're just like, we're done, we can lock the basement door, we don't want to deal with this. But the funny epilogue to this is, it was literally a couple of weeks later, we had a couple of dudes come to film the house for some local crazy Star Wars collectors. They're crazy kind of show documentary thing. 2 guys, right? Okay, so we're like, hey, we have a Star Wars Pepsi machine in the basement you could film, but it's on its side. They're like, oh. I said, hey, you 2 guys, if you want to help Gus put it up right, maybe you could film it. And they're like, oh yeah, we could do that. 3 guys down in the basement, it's up. They get their filming. What did I say? It takes 3 guys to make a Star Wars Pepsi machine.
Here's a good picture of Kim helping John.
Nice back shot there.
Yeah.
Thanks. My daughter, who's 11, took that picture. Anytime my husband comes and says, honey, I'm like, what do you want to buy now? He has a couple arcade machines, and this was one where it would not fit in my minivan, which, having 3 kids, I was excited about getting a minivan. And he was supportive because the seats come out and he can get lots of stuff in there. But this was the